Hello, one and all. My name is Joshua, and welcome to the Wrinkly Shirt Emporium. I wanted to wear anything else, but I just didn't have anything. Today we're going to be getting into something that I got into recently. Organic versus not organic foods. I've been under the impression for, forever that organic meant, it's the tippy top premium food option that if you can afford organic, you should always, no matter what, get it, basically. But I'm here to tell you that I learned something different today. Now, I started out buying things like apples and bananas organic, and then I started moving into more of the tuna and then other vegetables, even like cucumber and mushrooms. And then that moved into meats, like chicken and beef specifically. But obviously you run into some problems sometimes, like with light mayo, for example. If you're cutting and you kind of need light mayo, you can't find that everywhere. At least where I shop, I can't find organic light mayo anywhere. But I digress. That's not exactly why I'm here. I'm here to talk about whether or not it's actually beneficial to buy organic or not. Now, I'm going to be citing most of my research from the Mayo Clinic. I've cited them before. They're in .org, so it's not like it's wrong information. But they start out with talking about what organic food is and then what it isn't. Specifically citing the many misconceptions that people have with organic foods. One thing for me specifically that I didn't really think about, but it makes sense when you tell somebody, is that organic food is not necessarily grown near you or in the same state or relatively in your area. Again, that's just something that it makes sense when you say it out loud. I just never really thought about it. I live in Alaska, so there are brands that are dedicated to specifically catering towards Alaska grown, or there's this brand of carrot producers that you see them everywhere in Alaska, that it's this gigantic blue label, if I remember right, and they have this really good earthy taste that I prefer, but that doesn't always mean they're organic. Speaking of organic, you're gonna tell that it's organic because it's gonna have a fat giant organic label on it. It's the whole point of being organic. It's gonna tell you. Now, one thing that actually shocked me, because I'm not a farmer. I don't actually grow my own food. I've only ever grown a carrot once. But what organic means is more of how it was grown and produced more than what it says about the food. Because technically speaking, both organic and non-organic foods actually have to comply with the same safety standards. So in that way, they are the exact same. But, and this is something you probably did know, is that organic foods and / organic farmers can't use as soil additives, hormones, or antibiotics, or at least most of them. Main reason being is that you're gonna ingest that, and that's not very organic. I don't think antibiotics grow on your food normally. But that kind of leads into the biggest shock for me, is that organic foods don't have, or at least they usually don't have any more nutrients than regular non-organic foods. I legitimately thought that you could get more out of organic foods, but that's not really the case. As a matter of fact, in my own experience, especially with things like fruit and vegetables, you can really taste the difference between organic and non-organic. Let's take apples, for example, right? Obviously these are different types. This is a Pink Lady, this is a Fuji. But one thing you can notice, I bought these on the exact same day. That doesn't mean they were grown on the same day or nothing like that, but this one looks it's in a movie or something. This one, maybe you can see this. There's a bunch of blemishes on the top, and it's the coloring is all weird. Not to mention, when you eat, no matter which organic apple you eat, they're not as sweet and they're not as consistent with the flavor in the entire thing. As a matter of fact, I can buy an apple that got put on the shelf the same day, and it could still have brown spots in it, which is especially bad for things like bananas, because even non-organic bananas, with the ones that have antibiotics and hormones in it, those kind of rot pretty fast, especially if you leave them on the countertop. But holy, organic ones, I cannot believe how fast those go bad. Granted, I'm not the type, I used to be like this, but I'm not the type that leaves food to rot anymore. I usually eat what I buy, but that doesn't mean I'd rather them rot faster. Basically, I do miss that. I do miss that I could just leave them in the fridge for a little bit longer if I don't feel like eating it that day. Also, something I somehow missed this when I first read the article here. I don't know how I missed this. It says that some organic or non-organic foods have radiation used on them. Also, another thing that I'm just now realizing is the wording of this article specifically. I don't know if this is just the way they worded it or if this is actually the case. Animals get organic feed and must have the option to go outside. I don't think that necessarily means that the gate is open 24/7. So I don't know how much of the difference that actually makes. Maybe one day for a video, I'll go visit a farm. I live in Alaska. There's plenty of farmers up here. Okay, now, I know it sounds like I'm talking a lot of shit about organic food right now, right? Like, why would you buy it if after listing all those things, why would you even consider buying it? So here's the thing, right? The one thing that, like, you're not really going to think about too much, but it is a proven fact, is that eating organic foods tends to reduce the risk of cancer. Specifically, like, the main one that's studied is the Hodgkin lymphoma, basically just like a subgroup of lymphoma, basically. Looking at a article from popsci.com, out of almost 70,000 people, they asked questions about, like, if they had cancer already, do they smoke, general living habits, basically. Even things like drinking and how much money they earned. And shockingly, through all those questions, somehow it turns out that organic food does, in fact, lead to an overall, like, less cancer diagnosis as compared to people who don't eat organic, basically. Or I guess more specifically don't live an organic lifestyle. Now, I do need to make it known that they say this too. What's getting slightly less attention in the media is what happened when the researchers broke down cancer risk into specific kinds of cancer. Eating organic food had no impact on participants' risk of premenopausal breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, or skin cancer. It was only associated with a reduced risk for postmenopausal breast cancer, lymphomas, and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Now, that is great and all. That is good. But that's not exactly something you're gonna notice over the course of your life. One day you might just blink and, oh, I smoke too much, I have cancer now. All right, and seeing that I am the perfect female specimen right here, I thought it was important to bring up the fact that people who are pregnant, like, along with obviously reducing cancer, it's gonna also eating organic is gonna reduce the chances of pregnancy complications. It's similar to the vibe of, like, just don't smoke while you're pregnant, and then you're less likely to have issues. Just by the fact that there aren't any pesticides and antibiotics and things like that, there's just not going to be any, but less problems with the earlier, especially the earlier phases of pregnancy. And this one's just, like, another one of those, like, so obvious that, like, why didn't I think of that kind of things? Is, like, for the people that do actually eat the recommended amount of, like, veggies and fruit daily, you're just going to be ingesting less hormones and pesticides. I'm one of those people, as I eat, at the very least, I eat a banana and an apple every single day. And it's not going to make a huge difference, but I do eat a cucumber daily as well. Now, here's the thing that, like, really got me pretty hard when I was looking this up, is that organic foods aren't always safer to eat than regular non-organic foods. Because, like I said earlier, every bit of produce has to, like, you know, ideally has to follow the specific guidelines and safety standards set by the U.S. Also, if it wasn't obvious, I'm talking about the U.S. here, the United States. Like, I'm not talking about other countries. So what I'm saying is, just because something is, like, labeled as organic, that doesn't mean that they're any more or less safe than a non-organic food. A non-organic food could also not have radiation or any pesticides in it, for that matter. But, I mean, it might have some antibiotics in there, or, like, the animals were raised with growth hormone or something like that. And naturally, like I said earlier, it's organic foods, specifically produce, aren't exactly more nutrient dense than their regular counterparts. A quote from the Mayo Clinic says, like, the level of nutrients in food depends on a host of factors. Nutrients may be different between varieties of a plant. Levels also depend on the quality of the soil, harvest time, and the way products are stored and for how long. So that's the biggest takeaway I'm taking, is, like, how long the food was stored before it ended up in your apartment or house. Because, like, if your produce isn't being fucking frozen before you buy it, or it's, you know, generally put out at a relatively fast pace and purchased at a fast pace, I don't see you really running into many problems. Outside of the occasional "there's a spider in my grapes" kind of thing that you see on TikTok a lot. Because believe it or not, the organic label doesn't cover that part. Like, there might still be bugs in your food. Oh, actually, I'm reading it right now. It literally says right here, both organic and conventionally grown foods can be contaminated with bacteria, especially E. coli, and Salmonella typhimurium. Organic or not, food can be made safer in several ways. And essentially what it's saying here is, like, if you keep your food in the fridge, you keep it fresh, you're gonna have a better time with eating it. Don't keep it out in the sun. Like, that's gonna not make it edible. It also mentions to not, like, start washing your food until you're ready to eat it. I assume that it's just because, you know, water can start growing mold, and you don't really want to eat moldy food. That's not a good thing to do, believe it or not. And it does mention here that organic food is typically more expensive than conventional, but I have to admit, it's really not the biggest difference you could make to your life. I would still say, like, if you're a bad spender like I am, if you're spending more money on food, I really don't think that's a bad thing, especially when it's like organic food specifically. Like, okay, so honestly, in my mind, if your diet is consisting of like a lot of single ingredient foods such as fruit and vegetables, I genuinely recommend you just switch to organic regardless, because there are some foods and drinks that you're just not going to get away from the non-organic side of things. And for those of you who are like Gen Z like me or just younger people, there's one that you may not even think about. Energy drinks. I have never in my entire life, I've never seen an organic energy drink before, because like I don't know how you're gonna organically grow alpha GPC. But just because like this article is saying, just because it's not organic, that doesn't mean it's unhealthy, or that it's, more specifically, it's not safe to drink. Because in my mind, if you're drinking like 1 or 2 of these a day, I don't think it's gonna kill you in the long run, especially if you're eating other things that are organic. The biggest takeaway I have for this specifically is that if you just lead an overall healthy lifestyle and then also switch to organic foods when you can, then you're gonna be fine. Now, I'll be the first to admit there are complications with things like diabetes specifically. You can't be eating fruit whenever you feel like. Me included, I'm not diagnosed with anything, but I do have a history of type 1 diabetes in my family. So like, I'm 22 right now. I could still get it. There's still a chance that I get it, even though I think I'm technically past the prime phase to start seeing the signs. And even if you're not diabetic, you shouldn't be eating 5 to 10 apples a day. That's like kind of obvious. But the other side of that is that there are scientists currently to this day looking into solutions for type 1 diabetes, which I've even made a video about, which I'll put on the screen somewhere. You should go watch that. But my point with that is type 1 diabetes might not be a thing forever. You might not have to count every single bite of an apple you eat every single time. Forever. But anyways, that's all I had to say about this. I think that organic is still a thing you should do, even though it's not the healthiest choice you can do for yourself. If you're already optimizing your life in other ways with like supplements, then you may as well start eating healthier too, where you can. Okay, there is one more thing I'd actually like to address here, and that it's the digestion part of organic foods. So I hear this thrown around a lot. There's specifically like a couple of Trend Twins clips where they say like, if it's not organic and it's not homegrown or free range, I'm not gonna touch it.
If it's not grass-fed or organic, bro, I'm not eating it. I'm not gonna lie. It's more expensive in the long run, but like you digest it way quicker. I feel better after eating it. It really does matter, truly.
And specifically referring to impossible foods, like plant-based foods, as like hard to digest.
Calorie, what is the point of impossible wild nuggets?
It's impossible to digest. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're brought up as jokes. Sometimes it sounds like they're pretty serious about it. And I just hear it thrown around a lot, so I'd like to bring it up here. Specifically, it's those pesticides and like add-ins to the soil and mostly the food itself that's going to be hard to digest. Taking a quote from the Gut Authority right here. Because organic foods are clean without added toxins, they are easy to digest. Pesticides and additives such as sugar alcohols are hard on the gut. Organic foods contain healthy fats and are chock full of nutrients. Clean foods are easier for the gut to digest, minimizing stomach upset. What? And supporting optimum health, which that makes sense. The more simple a food is, the easier it's going to be on your stomach. But that's just one more thing I wanted to throw in the ring, because that's just, I've heard that a lot thrown around, and in my experience, that's even pretty true. Like, I don't have bloating is the big thing that I've noticed. I don't bloat that much when I eat organic foods, unless I eat like a lot of it, which isn't very often. But anyways, just wanted to throw that in there.